you everyone for joining. This is the 2027 Visual Arts Project Award Clinic. My name is Justine Harrington and I am the Visual Arts Assistant. Today on this information clinic we have Claire Power, who's the Head of Visual Arts, and Sabina McMahon, Visual Arts Support Manager, with Emma O'Leary, who's our Visual Arts Officer. The presentation today will be about 50 minutes and the information clinic is being recorded and will be available to watch online after the Arts Council on the Arts Council YouTube channel and on the Visual Arts Project Awards section of the Arts Council available funding page on the Arts Council website. If you have any questions, I would ask you to add these to the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. And I will be answering these as they come in, and we may have time at the end to address some of these live. We will, of course, be available to answer these after today by email if you wish, or calls. And we will follow up on any questions we don't get to that come in today through the webinar. There's a captioning option at the bottom of your screen if you wish to look at through subtitles. You just need to click the show captions and select your preferred language and click save. It's also important to note that as part of our equality, diversity and inclusion policy, the Arts Council is committed to offering equality of access, opportunity and outcomes to all potential applicants, regardless of their gender, sexual orientation, civil or family status, religion, age, disability, race, membership of the traveller community or socio-economic background. I'm going to hand you over now to Claire Power, who's the Head of Visual Arts, for an overview of Visual Arts and the project award under Visual Arts for 2027.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Justine. Yeah, so Emma, Anya, I think we can move on. Great. So Justine has already introduced the team, and as she mentioned, my name is Claire Power and I'm the Head of Visual Arts here at the Arts Council. So today's clinic is about the Visual Arts Project Award for 2027. And the information clinic is going to touch on the following content. And just maybe to say at the outset as well that all of the information provided here on the project award is within the guidelines or is from the guidelines. So really the guidelines for the award are the kind of primary source of reference for information. And indeed, when you ask a question as well, we always revert to the guidelines. So just to say that at the outset, that it's really important to read the guidelines. But otherwise, in our clinic here today, we're going to touch a little bit on kind of policy and strategy context, the purpose and overview of the project award, how to apply, support materials, some useful tips, and we will look at some sample recurring questions at the end, and then hopefully, as Justine said, to have an opportunity to discuss live some questions as well. Thank you. So all of the work that we do at the Arts Council, all of our awards and funding programs are informed by our 10-year strategy, which is called Making Great Artwork. And the twin pillars of making great artwork are the artist and public engagement. So they are at the core of everything that we do. And it's an exciting time for us at the Arts Council as well, as we're in a year of strategic renewal. So next year, in Q1 2027, we will have a new strategy for the Arts Council. And I'm mentioning that to you now just in terms of the context of opportunities for consultation in the second half of this year on the new strategy. So please do look out for that as well. Currently, our current visual arts policy and strategy is aligned to making great artwork, but that's something we'll be looking at in the future as well under the new strategy. Thanks, Emma O'Neill. So the Arts Council also has a range of corporate policies, resources and toolkits as well that advances the development of the arts in Ireland. And perhaps one to call out here, if you're not already familiar with it, would be the paying the artist policy is really kind of the central policy to the work at the Arts Council and the impact that it has on the development of the arts in Ireland as well. So please familiarise yourself with the paying the artist policy. That is really important in terms of thinking about paying yourself, but also importantly collaborators as well on projects that you work with as well. So there's kind of good guidance and best practice and principles within that as well for paying yourself and expectations there for being paid, and also in terms of collaborators that you are working with as well. Also, perhaps if there's organisations or creative producers or producers on the call as well, the Arts Council has some really good resources on its website as well around public engagement. So there is a really good tool called the Map Your Audience tool. So for example, if you're a small scale organisation or a venue, you can put in where your location is, and then you can get a kind of a map of audience demographics for up to a radius surrounding you. So that could be helpful in thinking about your public engagement plan. And also on our website, we'll have information about the Arts Insights, Arts Attendance Report from 2025 as well, which shows you kind of the kind of key patterns and trends in arts attendance in Ireland. Um, so a broad overview of the award. So we are currently open for applications, and the closing deadline is the 23rd of July. So the Visual Arts Project Award, it is a very competitive award, like many awards at the Arts Council. There was a 22% success rate last year. So I suppose roughly speaking, that's about 1 in 5 applications were funded. So it is very competitive, perhaps not as competitive as our other award for artists, which is bursary. That's more around the kind of 18% or even 16%. But Visual Arts Project Award is very competitive as well. So we're really within that, we're looking for, or the projects that are funded are certainly excellent proposals, and we're looking for proposals that are artistically compelling, artistically ambitious, and with clear and feasible plans as well. And I suppose the purpose, which one? Sorry, is it this one? Okay, yeah, this is the purpose of the project award. I suppose you can think about it in terms of like the 3 Ps. So it's for planning, it's for production, and it's for presentation. And it's also for commissioning in the visual arts as well. And proposals can be for kind of traditional or conventional spaces for exhibitions, such as galleries, art centres, festivals, thinking about festivals as well, but also to give priority as well to kind of non-conventional or non-traditional projects and spaces as well that might be more off-site or in unusual settings as well. So the project award is very much about kind of planning, production, commissioning of new visual artwork, and it's very much an audience or a public focused award as well. It's about the artist and development of artistic work, but it's also about bringing that work to a public as well, or the public's involvement or experience of that work as well. So it's not a purely developmental award like bursary would be. It is kind of focused on activity and outcome as well. And who can apply? So broadly, in respect of the award, it is a visual arts project award. So you need to be able to demonstrate a track record of practice in the visual arts. So you need to be a professional artist in the visual arts. And you need to be able to demonstrate you have a creative practice and a track record in the visual arts. So I suppose in terms of that, we welcome applications from the breadth of contemporary art practice, but you will be ineligible if your application is coming from design, from applied arts, or from non-fine art practices. So there are 3 distinct strands to the award. You can apply for one of these strands in each round. So the first strand is planning and pre-production. That's up to €12,000, and that is more of a research and preparation strand. So it's kind of about buying your time to build the capacity to develop the project, to develop the partnerships. Strand 2 is production engagement, and strand 3 is partnership, production and engagement. And strand 2 and strand 3 are quite similar in focus, as in they're focused on kind of commissioning, producing, presenting new work to audiences. With obviously kind of distinction there. The value, strand 2 is for up to 60,000. Strand 3, you must have a significant partner with you on the project. And the value of that award is up to 150,000, which is one of the highest values, if not the highest value project award at the Arts Council as well. So that partnership piece is really important there for strand 3. Also this year we have trialed or introduced a new budget template as well for strand 2 and strand 3. So you must apply. It's mandatory that you have a budget when you're applying for strand 2 and strand 3 of the project award. But this year we've introduced a template to help that. And the point of the template is to kind of break the budget down into a level of detail that it helps to translate your artistic ideas into kind of a clear and feasible plan. And budget is certainly something, in assessment stage, and then when it comes to panel stage, that is looked at closely. So really our budget is to kind of is recommended for use, and if you don't use it, I suppose you take it as a prompt, because I think that level of detail in some respects or in some shape is really important for translating those ideas into a clearer plan. But then the panel or whoever's looking at your proposal can see, okay, this is how many collaborators they have. This is how much the artist fee is. So it kind of breaks down work like that over the project. Also, there is another budget template as well, which is separate. It is for the personal disability access costs that the Arts Council offers. So when you're requesting disability access costs as an artist or as an applicant, you must upload a separate document listing those costs separately. And just to say that those costs are not assessed by the team, they are assessed privately by the access officer at the Arts Council. So you don't need to include your disability access costs, or please don't include your disability access costs in your main budget for the project. You include these separately, but you must include your audience access costs within the main budget for the project. But your personal disability access costs are separate, they're private, and they're looked at separately by our access officers. An award is made on that basis. Um, so as I mentioned, there are three strands, maybe to go into these in a little more detail over the next couple of slides. So strand one is more of a development. It's kind of for research and preparation of plans. So you can apply to strand one if you're thinking, if you've got a project idea, you want to start kind of shaping those partnerships, and you want to develop them memorandums of understanding. So it's kind of buying the time to kind of shape your projects and to kind of make a future project sound, giving it good foundations. So there's strand one. Then strand two is for production and engagement up to 60,000. And that supports the production and commissioning of ambitious projects with a specific focus then on public presentation and engagement. And within that, we'd expect to see maybe many self-produced projects, or as an artist, you might want to work with a producer as well, if there's kind of pieces of the work around public engagement, for example, where support is needed, or not. But yes, certainly it's kind of more the self-producing projects. And then strand three is partnership production and engagement. And as mentioned, the value of that is quite significant. It's up to 150,000. So it's for projects of scale of ambition and scale of importance. So producing and commissioning very ambitious projects. It's the same focus as strand two, but it must be supported by organisations. It can be a broad range of organisations, but must be supported by organisations that have a significant track record in the presentation of visual arts to audiences. And demonstration of that then would be looked for in the application as well. Thank you. Sorry, Emma, on you next, please. Oh, okay. I think we just jumped a little bit, but maybe when we go back in the last couple of slides, sorry, I think it was just to go into a little detail on strand. So we've done, sorry, strand one, planning and pre-production, just to kind of go into a little bit of detail on that, €12,000 again. So strand one is for the initial phase of a project. As I've said, it's around for research and preparation. And I suppose the objectives of what we're looking for there in that award is to demonstrate the capacity to deliver a project. So you're kind of preparing or building that capacity. You'll be developing plans for the project's future production, presentation, and engagement with the public. You're building those relationships and partnerships. If it's public art, you might be securing permissions for public spaces, those unconventional sites or venues. And it's to support the process of art making, producing and commissioning. And maybe just to say about strand one that, yes, strand one, I suppose, it's a standalone strand as well. So you'd apply to strand one and you might in the future then apply to strand two or strand three. Thank you. So strand two, a little bit of detail on that. It's called production and engagement, up to 60,000. Again, it's the producing, commissioning of ambitious visual arts project with specific focus on kind of public's experience and engagement with contemporary art as well. So strand two is for a final phase of a project. You can apply to strand one and then later in another year or another round to apply to strand two, or you can just decide as an applicant to bypass strand one and you're just going to go straight for strand two or indeed for strand three. You don't need to do strand one first, but you might want to kind of develop in that kind of slower, more durational way as well. So strand two will give priorities to proposals that create and develop ambitious work. So work that is ambitious in vision and execution. Again, that focus on the public's experience or involvement with visual arts is important to the award. It's kind of an activity or outcome focused award as well, rather than a purely developmental award. Within the scope of the strand, as well as producing art commissions, collaborations, partnerships, and priority as well is also given to visual art to the public in alternative and innovative settings. So thinking beyond the kind of normal context as well. And kind of briefly kind of on strand three, which is our final strand then that you'll have heard about. So partnership, production and engagement, that's up to 150,000. Again, supports the commissioning, producing of work. You must have, if you're applying to strand three, this must be supported by organisations with a significant track record in the presentation of visual arts, or the development or commissioning or producing and presentation of visual arts to audiences as well. And it's for the final phase of a project, meaning that, strand three is for the total of a project. So you could apply again, as I said, to strand one and then to apply to strand three, or you can go straight for strand three as well. So very similar to strand two in terms of the priorities, being around the creation of ambitious work, ambition and kind of scale and importance, and that kind of scale of ambition is important. It's more the focus on the public's experience of the visual arts, presenting visual art in alternative and innovative settings, and then art that results, or sorry, art, yeah, that's coming from commissions, partnerships, collaborations is kind of an important focus as well of this partnership award. And I suppose a key distinction as well, what we'd be looking for in terms of this strand would be the reflection of strong partnerships and support structures, or a level of investment by the applicant project partner into the proposal. And that can be in kind, or it can be other. Okay, so that is it, I think, for me in terms of the introduction. I'll pass over to Sabina, who will go into more of how to apply. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Yeah, so I'm going to go through kind of an overview of the steps involved in applying for the award. So if you want to go on the next slide, Anya. Thank you. Yeah, so there's kind of three steps, I suppose, really. So the first step is to register. So you'll need an online services account, an Arts Council OLS account, to apply for the award. You can register for one of these through the Arts Council website, and in order to receive an artist reference number, or ARN, you'll need that to access your online services account, download the application form, and then to submit your application. There's information on how to do that in the guidelines and on the website. The ARNs are unique identifying numbers for applicants, so you'll use the same ARN every time you apply for an Arts Council award. We would ask you to note that it takes up to about 5 working days to issue a new ARN, so if you're applying for the first time, you'll need to factor that time into the process of submitting your application. The second step is obviously to read the award guidelines. As Claire said, they're kind of the go-to place for information about the award. You can read them or download them from the Visual Arts Project Award page in the funding opportunity section of the website. And we would say that you should really take the time to read them in full and in detail. And if there's anything unclear or that you have questions on, you can always contact the visual arts team and we can clarify for you. And then step 3 of applying, I suppose, is the application form. So that is a Word document that has special rules and formatting kind of built into it, and it's character sensitive as well. So there is a video guide on downloading, completing and uploading the application form along with your support materials in the apply for funding section of the Arts Council website as well. So that's kind of an overview of the application process and how to. So if you go on to the next slide. Anya, thank you. So yeah, who can apply? I suppose Claire's covered a little bit of this already. So it's important, obviously, before you start putting the time and effort into preparing your application, that you check that you're eligible to apply. The award is open to professional, independent visual artists, curators, creative producers, visual arts collectives, or organisations that can clearly demonstrate a professional track record of working within visual arts contexts. And applicants should also be resident or primarily based in Ireland. Next slide, please. Thanks. So then the assessment criteria and what assessors are looking for. So when the applications are being assessed, the assessors are looking for applications and proposals that align closely with the 3 award criteria as outlined in the guidelines. I think it's page 52 for this award of the guidelines. So the first one is artistic quality, and the assessment there focuses on your previous artistic practice as well as the nature of the proposal. So we'd be looking for things like the the quality of the idea and proposed arts activity, your track record and potential of you and the other artistic personnel demonstrated through the application, the ambition, originality, and competency that you've demonstrated in your proposal, and then the innovation, experimentation, and collaboration that the application demonstrates. The second award criteria then is meeting the objectives and priorities of the award. The application's assessed on how well they meet these, and particularly within the strand you're applying to, I suppose, for a project with 3 separate strands. And you can refer back to section 1.1 of the guidelines on objectives of the award to kind of take you through what those are. And then on feasibility, we'd be looking at how you demonstrate your capacity to deliver the proposed activities and how, I suppose, how doable what you are proposing seems to be based on the information and evidence provided in the application. So in terms of feasibility, we'll be looking at the track record of the people involved in managing, producing, administrating and delivering the project, the provision of equitable conditions and adequate fees for those involved, the extent or involvement or commitment, sorry, the extent of involvement or commitment of any identified project partners that you're working with, the proposed timeline or schedule, the suitability of the proposed budget for the nature and duration of the work, and then any other sources of income or resources, perhaps in kind, that might be available to you that you have access to in carrying out the project. So next slide, please, on supporting materials. So this table is just kind of an overview of the required or mandatory supporting materials for each of the three separate strands for the project award. There is more detail on them from page 23 of the guidelines on. So you must include supporting materials with your applications in addition to the application form. They're mandatory or required documents that are intended to help assessors to get a clearer understanding of your proposal. There are different documents, as you can see, required depending on the strand you're applying to. And if you don't upload a mandatory supporting material, then your application will be incomplete and therefore ineligible, and we won't be able to assess it. So we'd really highlight the importance of making sure that you have all the required supporting materials for the strand that you're applying to, particularly because missing supporting material is the most common reason for applications being found to be ineligible. If you go on to the next slide, then a bit on the supporting materials formatting. So yeah, there's information on the acceptable file formats that you can use for the support materials in the guidelines from page 41 on. And the guidelines say you can submit your supporting documents as a single combined file or as separate files. You don't have to submit a single file, but we do very much welcome applications that gather all the supporting materials into one file, just because it makes it a lot easier for staff, the assessors, and then for shortlisted applications, the peer panelists, to assess and review the materials. For doing that, we'd say a PDF is probably handiest so that any formatting you have in the document is preserved. But equally, you don't have to do this. We also welcome, separate files, and there's no penalty for submitting support materials as individual files if that's easier for you to do. The next slide, please. So Claire's covered this a bit already. The disability access costs, there's two different types. So the personal disability access costs are intended to help remove barriers for artists or participants with disabilities who are delivering the proposal. So that would be yourself or others. You can apply for these costs in addition to the maximum amount available for the award in the strand you're applying to. And then the audience disability access costs are intended to help make your work accessible to people with disabilities. So you must include these costs in your core application budget. As Claire said already, there's a separate document outlining the access cost requests that you need to upload with your application if you're requesting access costs. And there's a template document available from the project award funding page that you can use for that. Okay, so then useful or top tips. So obviously, as we said before, read the award guidelines carefully, kind of at the outset, and check that you're eligible to apply for the award. If you have any questions on anything in the guidelines or your eligibility, you can always contact the visual arts team and we will help you with that. When you are preparing your proposal, writing your application, clearly outline the when, who, and why of what you're proposing to do. In terms of budget, it should almost always include the artist and collaborator fees. Before submitting the application, we'd ask that you check through your application form and supporting materials to ensure that you have everything that's required and everything that's needed before you upload the application through your OLS portal. And then finally, before doing that as well, we'd suggest that you ask a peer to read over and kind of sense check your application. It's always good to have kind of an extra slightly removed pair of eyes looking over your work just to make sure that everything's clear and that the assessors and staff will be able to kind of understand what you're asking for in the application. So next slide, please. These are some useful contacts. So if you have a general question about visual arts funding, and particularly obviously in relation to the project award, you can contact Justine Harrington, who's our visual arts assistant. And there's kind of a general visual arts at email address, or you can also contact Justine at justine.harrington@artscouncil.ie. If you need some technical help submitting the application, we'd say that you should get in touch as early as possible before the deadline. So you can contact the ICT team with technical queries through online services at artscouncil.ie or on the phone number there. And then if you have questions about the disability access costs, you can go to our Disability Access Officer, Vanessa Carswell, who is available through disability access at artscouncil.ie or the phone number there. And the next slide, please, I think. Yeah, so then just before we move on to kind of answering some questions that might have come through the chat, these are some frequently asked questions that we get. So let's kind of go through some questions and answers here. So the difference, I think Claire has kind of outlined this already, between the bursary and the project award. So the bursary award is focused on supporting practice development at a critical stage for artists and curators. There's no requirement for kind of a tangible outcome to arise through the award period for bursary, whereas project is very much outcome focused. Even for strand one, I suppose planning and pre-production, you're kind of looking towards an eventual thing that is going to happen out in the real world in some form. So there's an emphasis on high quality public facing arts activities and public engagement through project, which there isn't in bursary. The time frame for the Visual Arts Project Award activities for 2027 is 2027 really. It's a 1 year award. So it's designed to cover activities taking place next year. There can be some minor overspill into early 2028, maybe if an exhibition is kind of finishing up into the early part of the new year. But it can't support activities that have already been completed or that take place before the 1st of January 2027. In terms of what type of projects do visual arts support, I suppose anything that meets the various requirements set out in the award guidelines. Really key, which Claire has highlighted already, is that the artistic practice is from within the scope of contemporary visual arts practice and contextualised as such, and that the applicant can evidence a track record of professional practice in the visual arts, and also then that the outcomes proposed are public facing and encourage and deepen audiences' engagement and experience of the visual arts in Ireland. Will there be another round of the project award in 2027? No, so we just have one round of the award for 2027 and activities taking place then. And finally, can I apply for 2 project awards in the same round? That's very straightforward. Sadly, no. So they're the kind of frequently asked questions that we get in from potential applicants.